This edition is our new monster, which is Go, The Art of Change. This is a book I've been working on for 6 years or thereabouts. The key thing about Go is to help people understand what our whole program is about, and so you can actually use the book as a practical text, and you can also use it to discover what brought the school into being, what drives it, what our sense of purpose is. It's pretty big, and I should mention that everybody's going to get one, and well, every enrolled student, and there are some logistic headaches for us. They weigh about 2 kilograms each, 550 pages, illustrated front to back. I haven't even counted all the pictures. I think there's something between 1,500 and 2,000. We have 10 tons of books to handle, and that's a mere 5,000 copies. So getting them out there is going to be a big deal, really. When you're confronted with something this big, I just want to talk about how to respond to it. And my feeling is you can start anywhere. I think it's great just to flip open pages and browse. It's been great actually seeing this happening among staff, because they've been the first people to see it, and they will just sit there flicking over the pages and getting a sense of what's there. And I think that's a perfectly good tactic. I should add, it's not really in any essential sequence. If you're interested in sculpture, you could start in the sculpture area. If you're interested in drawing or life drawing, you can start in that area. So you don't have to read everything. And even if you can't read, the pictures tell a huge part of the story. In fact, I think people who don't like reading books will find this a great book to read. My starting point would be to try and come to terms with some of the key ideas, and the ones I would emphasize, some of which you should be familiar with already, are the creative spiral, which is just the cycle of how creativity works and how to take it forward. The second one might sound strange. I call it verbing, and a verb is a doing word, and what we're talking about in the book is just to use these verbs as a way to respond to something. So if you're making a sculpture, you might think of the verb to squash, and you might squash the material you're working with. If you're doing drawing, you might think of stretch or blur, or it doesn't matter what it is, but the idea is you think of an action to apply to the process you're using, and I think that is really important. And the third major issue is figuring out what an artist was trying to do when you're looking at an artist's work. So you try and unpack the work. And the point of unpacking is to find what's in it for you. How can you take that artist's process and actually use it for yourself? What if you're a total beginner? How do you deal with 550 glossy pages? My suggestion for total beginners is to start at the beginning and actually work through, certainly the first 100 or so pages, because they've been designed for beginners. They also give an overview for people who want to know our take on the dynamics of creativity, but I think if you're a beginner, that's important too. But they will literally take you from square one of how to draw, how to paint, and so on. And the 3D stuff is there too. I should mention in part, there are some areas which we can't cover. The book doesn't have a section on computer graphics or video, because I think those things are best dealt with in other ways. But there's a lot of computer graphic work in the book, not such a big emphasis on how to do it. One of the things that tends to happen, especially when we put out DVDs, is people think I have to do whatever it is. Now, that's not the approach that I prefer. I like people to relate to what is there around them, what is in your situation that's relevant to your creativity. The compliance part that we have to deal with is actually set out in a guide to TLC Magic, and that's our contract with the government. So if you're doing painting, stage 2 painting, it will say what the requirements are, and it's important that we keep to those, but those requirements don't actually specify any particular subject matter or anything else. They actually define process. So when you're using the book, think about it as process, and you can use anything in the book to connect with your process, and also it's great if you relate to where you are. Interestingly, when we put the book together, Kate White did the initial round of illustrations, and she was using what was available in her situation. So she didn't have a model, and she used her cat as the model. Things like that were happening all the time. So the idea is connect with where you are. Forget about trying to be in someone else's situation, relate other people's processes to what is relevant for you. The question arises, can you do it without a tutor? And to a certain extent, the answer to that is yes, but there's something I think really important about what tutors do. I felt that it was really great to think up all the ideas that I had about technical stuff and just put them out there to share. And the reason I did that, it's not giving away the farm, it is actually getting beyond all these basics, so then you can get on with what's important. I think the hugely important thing with a tutor is the interaction you have, and a book by itself can't do that. So I think the book really just takes the interaction straight away to a higher level, and you get on with it. The tutor doesn't have to be bogged down so much by the stuff that the book is delivering already. Same applies to the DVDs and all the other resources. They're a starting point for the interaction that follows. Does it matter if it's not like a regular curriculum? I've always felt a curriculum should be in the background. A curriculum lays out a program of study, and sometimes, you know, it gives the impression if you do this, this, this in a sequence, and it seems like an imposed plan. Now, what I feel is the things you need to do, again, like I was saying before, should come out of your situation, and it is unimportant whether they follow this sequence or not. What's important, again, is to follow process. So the process is our structure. It's not, you know, what's on page 49 of the book. That supports process, but the process is what matters most. Sometimes when I say that, people say, well, you know, anything goes. And the curious thing about that is anything doesn't go. If you're just playing and exploring, that's fine, although I think even playing and exploring has intent behind it. And finally, as you're developing skills, far from being anything goes, you're homing in on the things that really matter and you're trying to perfect them. So it's not anything goes, it's finding what's relevant, establishing your intent and getting focused on that, putting all your energy into making it work. Maybe that's just about it.